images and sound recordings. Can I please request that when councillors and any members of the public are speaking, not to disclose any personal information of an individual, as this might infringe the rights of that individual and breach data protection rules. This is a formal town council meeting and members of the public will be given the opportunity to speak during public open sessions, but will not be permitted to speak at other times. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is apologies, and we have apologies from Councillor Leslie Fage and Councillor Mark Foster. Now, do we have any declarations of interest in any item on the agenda, please, either pecuniary or non-pecuniary? No? Okay, thank you. So I'm going straight on to Town Mayor's announcements. And I'm delighted tonight to announce that today marks the anniversary of Peter Tarrant joining us as our Town Clerk and Chief Executive. He joined us in the midst of the turmoil of the pandemic and its impact on council services and the way our staff had to work. He soon got a grip of the situation and then set about reorganising the council to make it the organisation that we want it to be, suitable to serve an expanding town. The most obvious markers of Peter's success to date are a re-energised staff team and our fit-for-purpose public realm depot. There is plenty more for Peter to do, but I invite colleagues to join me in appreciation of Peter's first year in office. And now I think the Deputy Mayor has an announcement.
Yes, so a couple of weeks ago, myself, Councillor Mark Foster and Councillor Steve Watkins attended the official opening of the Biggleswade Cricket Club's cricket nets. They secured funding via Willing Farm Fund and also from Ward Council grants as well. So it was a very, very enjoyable evening, getting to see a wonderful facility that will be there for the cricket club and for Biggleswade for very many years to come. So I wanted to provide that update to colleagues about some of the work we've been doing.
Thank you very much. I now move on to public open session. Have we got any members of the public present or on YouTube?
No, we haven't.
Thank you very much. In that case, I can move straight on. We don't have an invited speaker, so I'm on to members' questions, please. Do we have any members' questions? No? Fine. So on to the minutes and recommendations of meetings. So I'm going to go through as usual for any corrections to the minutes. So I'm on page 1 of the minutes of the 27th of July, which are on page 6 of the agenda pack. Anything on page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
Item 10, I'll start.
Yes.
Good practice. So item 10, no, that's page 10, beg your pardon. Item 9G, it looks like we've got some repetition in there. So the outcome of, so it's resolved to object. We've then got 4 points which have gone in twice for some reason. So I think we can just strike a line through the second lot.
Okay, thank you. So it's most of the last 3 lines to go. Thank you for spotting that. Anything else on page 10?
No. Probably what happened about that one, that also belongs to on page 9, is identical in page 9. So you just need to copy that.
Thank you. Anything on page 11? Page 12? Page 13? Page 14? So will somebody please move that the minutes be adopted? Thank you very much. So I'm now on to matters arising. Anything from page 1? Or page 7 in the pack? Page 8? Page 9? Councillor Bond.
It's really item 10. I was wondering, the council resolved to object to actually send a request, an objection to the planning authority regarding the appeals. I sent an email out confirmation that actually happened. I have confirmation that actually the council did actually send in the representation.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Anything else on page 10? Page 11? Page 12?
Yeah.
Councillor Fage and Councillor Woodhead, if I may.
Sorry, yes. So item 11A, the street trading application. I know that this ended up going to TCM last week. I just wanted to check that we managed to get that response in a timely way, because I know we were slightly over with getting that in. So just wanted to check that's gone on.
It was resolved
Yes.
It's the decision at TCM from TCM that Councillor Fage is talking about, because it was referred to TCM. Do we know? Okay. Well, can we just confirm to councillors whether that response has gone in, please? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Woodhead.
It was the same issue. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Anything else on page 12, page 13, or page 14? Okay, thank you, colleagues. So we have some items that are recommended from the Town Centre Management meeting, which we'll take in the second part of the meeting. We're on to planning applications. The first one is 5 Home Court Avenue, porch and garage and new windows. Any comments, please? Are we happy, subject to neighbours?
Yeah.
Thank you. 17 St Margaret's Gardens, erection of 2-storey side extension. Any comments?
No objection, subject to neighbours.
Everybody happy? Thank you. 18 Maskin Drive, conversion of garage to habitable space. Any comments? No. Thank you. 33 Maunder Avenue, single-storey rear extension.
No objection, subject to neighbours.
Okay. 132 Mead End, loft conversion. Comments? Thank you. Elmside Potton Road, 2-storey side and single-storey rear extensions. Any comments, please? Subject to neighbours? Okay, thank you. Little Acre 1, Langford Road, change of use of land to extend the area for static and mobile caravans. Any comments, please? Councillor Ramsey, then Councillor Alban.
Are we familiar with this site before, or is this a separate one on the main? But we've had them trying to extend it before.
I don't remember. Is that?
2 more.
Sorry?
It's the same. It was withdrawn and it's been resubmitted.
Okay. Councillor Alban.
I don't think we should object to this, but I think we need to add to our comments that the views of the highway officer should be taken into account, because the access onto the road, this display isn't sufficient, and there's already a wall being built which sort of would need to come down to give adequate visibility of both vehicles and pedestrians for ingress and outgress. So
Okay.
I think we should underline the views of the highway officer on this.
So not to object, but to make sure that the highways officer's views are taken into consideration, because we're concerned about the access. Thank you. Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to support Councillor and further than second that. The question I have got is actually the wording that we've got on our agenda, because when you look at the application, it actually shows the 4 statics and the 4 mobile caravans on the site. So I think it's probably very much the same as before, but it doesn't actually go on to give details of the number of caravans, etc., being shown. So I was getting a bit confused as to why it's worded in this way, because it just looks as though it's an application for a change of use according to our agenda. But when you actually look at the Central Bed's website and the planning application there, then it looks to me that it is an application for the four static and four mobile caravans. So I just found the wording on the agenda confusing when we've had two previous applications which were quite clear as to what they were, and this one was coming out as just an expansion of the site, and I wasn't sure whether it was expanding the previous site or not. So that does cause a concern. But as I say, I'm happy to support Councillor Alban's proposal, but perhaps that could be taken on board well in the future when looking at applications like this.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Tarrant.
thank you. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Strawn. I just wanted to highlight to members that on Thursday evening, two of our senior officers will be coordinating a discussion more broadly around our planning options and how we respond to planning applications. One of those items for consideration is how we give more precise information to members and properly distinguish the different types of application that you've got. So if you could bear with us for a few days, I hope that your next time you see something, it will be a bit more succinct and clearer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else wish to speak? So the proposal is to not object to the application, but to request that the highways officers' views are taken into consideration because we're concerned about the access onto Langford Road. All those in favour, please show. I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. 70 Rowan Crescent, single story rear and side extension.
No objection, subject to neighbours.
Thank you. 15 Nursery Close, replacing a conservatory with a single story rear extension. Any comments, please? Subject to neighbours again. Okay. And then we have the supplementary agenda. And the first item on the supplementary agenda is land north of Biggleswade, which is obviously a very much more substantial application. And we have had a proposed response to Central Beds circulated. So I'm going to ask Councillor Fage to introduce it and then obviously open for discussion.
Thank you very much. So firstly, apologies to colleagues for the short notice with some of the details in this response. Hopefully you can appreciate it's been very long drawn out. It was almost, it was over 18 months ago that we first started to see the detail of this application. And since then, there's been a big back and forth between us and transport consultants as and when further documentation has become available. The objection that you have in front of you, or that was sent around this morning, highlights pretty much the most material areas that ourselves and the transport consultants agree are those which are the things that planning officers, highways authorities should be caring about the most. Obviously, we probably could have come up with a list of 20, 30 things that we dislike about this application. And if we were to go into every piece of detail, it would be a very long, extensive list. But we've picked out those which are the most impactful, namely the terrible access down Furston Hall Road and the applicant's inability to deal with parked cars. The very poor analysis that they've done over junctions, including Shortmead Street and Sun Street and Drove Road, London Road, and then also the impact that they will have on archaeology and the disruption they'll cause to scheduled monuments and potentially nationally important archaeology on that site as well. So I would ask colleagues please to support. I'm very happy to listen to comments, of course, but would be grateful for colleagues supporting backing that response and sending it to Central Beds as our official response to this planning application. I'd also like to make a couple of more proposals though. So I'd like to request that we ask Central Beds to put this response on the planning portal so that it's accessible to members of DMC and others, but also that we ask for our technical audit to go onto the planning portal because it seems to have mysteriously disappeared. And we should ask for the response of Sandy Town Council to go into the planning portal as well, because it's quite unprecedented for a neighbouring parish to respond to a planning application, but they care about this as well. So that's the second part of the proposal, that we ask for those things to go on the planning portal. And then finally, I think we need to ask Central Beds to conduct further analysis around the Drove Road London Road junction. For those who have read the response, you'll have seen that Central Beds have commissioned consultants to basically interrogate the analysis that the applicant has done over Sun Street and Shortleaf Street. The consultants have done a very, very good job, and our consultants agree that the consultants that Central Beds employed are pretty damn good, best in the business. So given that Central Beds had those reservations over that junction, and I think probably still do, given the severity of the junction at Drove Road, London Road, the fact that it's already over capacity, the fact that it's the access route for the school, the fact that it's been mismodelled by the applicant, I think we should be asking Central Beds to conduct very similar analysis and asking their consultants to do very similar work, if they'd be willing to, over that junction as well. So that's a three-part proposal. To summarise, so A, that we send this response to Central Beds as circulated this morning. B, that goes on the planning portal alongside our technical audit and Sandy Town Council's response. And then C, that we request the consultants interrogate the Drove Road London Road junction in the same way that they have Sun Street and Shortleaf Street. So very happy to take comments and questions, but I'd like to propose that, please.
Councillor Knight.
Second that, please, and then make a point.
Thank you. Councillor Strawn, then Councillor Pullinger.
If I may, please.
Sorry.
I was seconding and making a point. Thank you. I think it's an excellent response. Just one request. Apologies if I've missed this. Would it be possible to have a reference to the dangerous and narrow nature of the footpaths on the Potton Road Railway Bridge, please? I couldn't see that in there, and I think that's an important point to raise. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think an excellent job's been there. I think the report by consultants is excellent. The only observation I'd make is with regard on the second page near the top about the applicant arguing against harm mitigation for the junction and referring to soft mitigation in terms of public transport and drivers' awareness. Perhaps we could just emphasise they've got absolutely no control over this, and they cannot mitigate this because, as we all know, public transport has been cut in Central Beds and Biggleswade, and it's not in the control of the applicant with regard to that. And certainly, I think in reality, people are going to have to use their cars because there is no public transport of sufficient quality to actually support that development.
Okay, so you wish to add a sentence to the second paragraph to say that these issues are not under the control of the applicant.
If that's to wish of the council, I'd be happy. I think it makes it worth mentioning.
Okay. Not to detract from Councillor Fage's next sentence, which I think will go down in history.
These are dangerous mitigations, not grounded in reality.
Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. So firstly, I'd like to just that we could put on record our thanks to Councillor Fage, because I know he has put many hours into not just preparing this letter, but in general around this application. Just one very minor point, and it might be me being very pedantic, it probably is, but in the third from final paragraph, time and again the applicant has sought to do the bare minimum to mitigate the harm. To me, that if they've done the bare minimum, they've done enough. So I think I would add in 2 words after sought, which is and failed.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments, colleagues? Yes, of course.
So I'm fine with all of those. I think the Potton Road Bridge is dangerous and there would be a dependency there for the applicant. So I can find a way of weaving that in somewhere. In terms of the public transport comments from Councillor Strawn, I'm sure we can add some words to that effect in the paragraph that he's suggesting. And yes, I sincerely agree with the applicant has not just failed to do the bare minimum, but it's not that they've even bothered to try to do the bare minimum in many cases. So I'm very happy to add all of those into that response alongside the other two parts of the proposal as well.
Okay. Is council prepared to take all three proposals together, or do you wish to take them individually all together? Yeah, okay, thank you. So I'll see if I can summarise. The first proposal is that this paper should be the response, the formal response of the council to this planning application. We're to add something about the footpaths on Potton Road Bridge. We're to add that the public transport and changing people's habits is not in the control of the applicants. And we're to add sought and failed to the document. So that would be that document. We're to request that various documents go on the planning portal. So that's the technical audit, this response, Sandy Town Council's response. And I've lost the final thing.
London Road.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Yes. So we're to request Central Beds that their consultants who did the analysis on Shortmead Street, Sun Street, should do a similar analysis. So that's what we're voting for. All those in favour, please. That's a unanimous response from the council. Thank you very much. And I want to add my thanks to Councillor Fage and also actually to our consultants, our transport consultants, because they've had very little time to produce the response that they produced. Some of the information that they needed wasn't immediately available, and we had to request that from Central Beds. So they worked to a very tight timetable, and I know that Councillor Fage spent a lot of time over the weekend putting this together for us. So thank you very much. Right, I can find my agenda. We've done Land North, so I'm still on the supplementary agenda, and it's 60 Saffron Road, and it's a variation of condition. We've had this on the agenda several times. Are there any issues with the variation? Anybody wish to say anything? No? So just subject to neighbours again? Okay, thank you very much. The next item is planning application outcomes. Are there any issues with the planning application outcomes? Any questions anybody has? I'm taking that as no. So I'm going to move on. So the next item is the accounts. And can I hand over to Councillor Pullinger, please?
Thank you. So I'd like to propose that we adopt the detailed balance sheet to the 30th of June 2021, the summary income and expenditure by committee for the same period, the detailed income and expenditure by committee, and the Lloyds Bank payment listing for June 2021.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you. All those in favour, please. Yeah, that's unanimous again. Thank you. Right, we're on to items for consideration. The first is the electric vehicle charge points, and we have a report from the place shaping manager. Can I go to Councillor Knight, please?
Thank you. So I'd like to support the migration to electric vehicles, and I'm very supportive of the principle of providing more electric vehicle charging points in town, particularly to support those with no off-road parking. But I don't think we can or should endorse any specific sites at this stage. I think it's important that we look at EV charging holistically across Biggleswade, not just on town council sites. And I think we need more information to come to a decision. I note in the summary section of the report, it says several areas have been identified. I have a request perhaps for the clerk. Who's identified these areas? Is this town council or Central Beds? I think it would be quite helpful to know. But moving beyond that, I'd like to make a proposal, if I may, at this early stage. So I would like to propose that we request that Central Beds documentation relating to this scheme is shared with members, please, because I don't think we have that. I believe in April this year, Central Beds launched a public campaign to help select and to ask the public to help select potential future EV charging sites and locations. Would it be possible to ask Central Beds to provide us a summary of the responses that they've received, please? And I would also like to suggest that we invite Central Beds or an officer from Central Beds to come to a future council meeting so we can understand the scheme in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Further comments, colleagues? Councillor North and then Councillor Strawn.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't think anybody knows the answer to this, but looking at this paper from Simon, see Simon's not here, it says something about the electricity costs for charge point use will be recouped by a rebate from the provider. And I don't really know what that means. But it's talking about costs, sourced from the Office for Zero Emissions. But in terms of the actual cost of the power that's used, I mean, what does that mean? Does anybody know?
Carry on.
My understanding is that the introduction of this scheme essentially once it's all agreed on the traffic is on the charging really or close to that will essentially be this kind of round that we made. The paper itself and the synthesis is really so that it's to seek initial reviews from which they are interested in this example. Charging that the costs are.
I think that's illustrating that we need more information, I think, along the lines of what's going on. No. Okay, Councillor Strawn, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we're going down exactly the right route on this. The only question I've got is, should we be actually publicising the possibility of this with the members of the public on our website? So if they've got ideas as to where the site should be, that we've actually consulted with the public. I think we can show the expression of interest, but I think we should also be carrying out research on our own part that people would like and where we would suggest it in case we don't think of everything. I know we know everything, but we probably will miss something. So I think it would be sensible if we could do some publicity on that.
Can I just say from my point of view, I think that's premature, Councillor Strawn, because we don't know what we're offering members of the public. And there was an intimation in here that we might be looking at community halls, church halls and things like that. What are we saying to these people about having charging points? Because the big downside of it is the loss of parking spaces for other purposes. So personally, I'm not in favour of going out to the public until we know a bit more. Did you wish to come in?
Is that possible? Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to respond to Councillor's question, which was the initial sense of where the sites might be, and I'd stress the word initial, came from the place shaping manager.
Okay, thank you.
And as the paper suggests, this is a very indicative sense of time paper where we're seeking your input, and it's going to be a period of time before we actually determine where is the right places for all these things to go. And I'd support what the Mayor's just saying at the moment. The kind of information is kind of slowly funneling through. It's not precise at the moment. Yeah.
Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Pullinger?
So I did second this, so I just thought I'd add a couple of comments and really just reiterating some of the things really, but I think it really is important before we suggest any specific locations that we actually have some real thought and input into it. I mean, on the ones that have been suggested, and I don't think tonight is now the time to go into it, but I don't think it would necessarily be appropriate for us to be placing these in places that are not accessible to the public, for example, our public realm depot. So I think we do need to do at the right time some consultation built upon the consultation that Central Beds have actually already done to ask for sites. But I think the key part of the the proposal is that to get a member of the team at Central Beds to come and talk to us and to tell us a bit more about this and about ultimately the direction that this is going to go in.
Would you partly respond to Councillor Pullinger? I mean, I think there's at least two aspects of this. Number one aspect is where would be the right places for the let's call it the members of the public, the community, to access this. And at the moment, we don't know. That's going to emerge. But there's a secondary, just as important question, which is as our public realm team gets bigger and supports both the public and private sector, very soon our public realm manager is going to be making some recommendations in regard to our fleet. And we need to be thinking about our fleet going forward and using it in the most green and effective way, which may be going forward, having some form of electric vehicles, whatever. But we're trying to think ahead, basically. Yeah.
Well, I think that brings up another issue about whether the funding that is available is meant to be for public access or whether it can be for private access, because if we want it for our public realm team, should it be our responsibility as a council to do it? So, I mean, there's so many questions in this. We could spend some time discussing it. So, Councillor Knight, would you just like to summarise your proposal?
Yeah, if I may then. So yes, certainly to express our interest in further discussions, to request further documentation relating to the scheme. As mentioned, I understand Central Beds have been consulting with the public and have been requesting sites. So there's some information I think that to Councillor Strawn's point we should look at before we do any of our own consultation perhaps. And then definitely to invite an officer from Central Beds. I think it may be Mr. Morey to come and speak to us.
Yeah. Because I think the other issue is there's no indication of on-street parking at the moment, which would probably be most useful to residents. Okay, so you've heard the proposal again. All those in favour, please. We're unanimous again. Thank you very much. Right, now the next item on the agenda is market strategy, and to be specific, part of that strategy, which is the market policy. So are you introducing it?
Yes, sure. Thank you. Firstly, apologies again to colleagues for the late circulation of the market policy part of this item. That it's my fault. We adopted the market strategy several months ago. It was still when we were doing remote meetings, must have been April or March time, I think it was early April. And the market strategy set out a sort of framework for how we should start to transform our market, and it gave us some ideas for where some of the low-hanging fruit might be, some of the easier things to execute on, and then also a sense of how we can change delivery and grow it over the coming months and years. This strategy document is unchanged from then. The market working group has not had the opportunity to review it in detail, but when they do, I hope it will come back to Council or TCM to challenge that properly. So the market strategy is as it was in April. We adopted it for 6 months, I believe. So we're asking, I'd like to ask Council again to continue with the market strategy in its current form until such a time as the market working group is able to suggest changes to it. The market policy was approved by TCM last week as a recommendation to Council. In terms of the key changes versus our current policy, really the document is now trying to empower the market superintendent. He does a very, very good job, and we want to make sure that this policy backs them up to do it. In terms of the intricate details, we're seeing slight changes to the market hours, and this is, bear in mind, all following an extensive consultation with our traders and feedback that they've given us. So slight increase to market hours. The option potentially for lower pitch fees for regular traders, we're leaving that relatively open, but it is mentioned in the policy. Slightly tighter standards over food hygiene, which I think is probably a positive thing. Some wording to support buskers who have been attending the market and making sure that they're properly governed by our policy. And then finally, again, keeping the wording open, but seeking some payments up front from traders so that we're handling less cash. So that's the policy. It was recommended by TCM last week. Apologies for the very short notice, but I'd like to propose that Council endorses the market strategy and until such a time as the market working group can revisit it and bring it back to council. And I'd also like us to adopt the market policy, if that's okay. Thanks.
Do I have a seconder, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Comments, please, councillors. Okay, well, I have a proposal on the table. All those in favour of... You don't even let me get the words out. This is great. Thank you very much. Unanimous again. Now we have two tree issues, works to trees, 8 Barnfield Close. Any comments?
Noted.
Noted, thank you. And the second one is Second Meadow, Fairfield. Well, I think it would be slightly unfortunate if council went against this one. Yeah, Councillor Bond, you wish to speak?
I've looked at this one, because obviously group 1, group 2 don't make sense. So I've looked at tree preservation on it. These are the trees drawing the boundary, per se fence, the path that goes right through to the common. That's where they are. I don't think the applicant's actually the football club rather than ourselves. Obviously his our land. I see no issue with this.
Okay,
Noted.
noted. Yeah, thank you very much. Well, we have no items for information. We have no members of the public. And so I'm going to declare this first part of the meeting. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have ignored you, Councillor Watkins. Do you wish to speak?
No, just a quick comment on the electric vehicle charging. I know that Stephen Warren would be delighted to address the council, so I'm sure that can be arranged very shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Partly because you're behind, we'll get this sorted. Okay, so I'm now going to declare this first part of the meeting closed. Thank you, colleagues.
Like you first joined council, getting a meeting over in 30 minutes, isn't it?
Could we stop recording, please?